Welcome everyone to the Thursday, April 2nd edition of the Vancouver Power BI Modern Excel User Group Meetup. Today we've got young Karel Pieterse, try and butcher your last name for you right off the bat. It's going to be talking about vibe coding and Office JS add-in. But before we do that, of course, we're just going to do our standard on thanking the sponsors. Skillwave Training, which is my training company that teaches you how to be awesome with Excel and Power BI. Is the lead sponsor that organizes this and pulls it all together, finds the speakers and hosts the show. Excelguru is the parent company of Skillwave and the creator and distributor of the Monkey Tools add-in, which can help you build better Excel solutions faster. Our next meetups that we have coming up in 2 weeks, we've got Juliana Smith is going to be joining us to talk about Power BI for everyone. We're going to be looking at accessibility in Power BI, so that should be great. That'll be at our normal 9 a.m. Pacific time slot. And then a couple of weeks after that, a month from now, super excited to actually be bringing Mark Proctor to the show. This checks off my list of all the Unpivot podcast characters are going to be here. So we have not been able to get Mark yet. So he's going to be talking about handling blank values in Excel, which I know will also be fantastic. So those are open for RSVPs now. If you are interested in learning a little bit more about my Monkey Tools add-in, we have a free course at Skillwave Training. You can check out the URL on the top. All these URLs are in the slide deck, which is already posted on the Meetup site that you RSVP'd to as well. There's about 6 hours of content here to just talk about, what Monkey Tools does, because it does a lot of great stuff, and give you some tips on how to use it and explain the difference between what's free and what's paid and all those good things. We have a relatively new product in our course catalog at Skillwave, which is called our Ask Ken Anything subscription. So you can actually come in and join a bunch of our students who are signed up for this service as well, where basically, as the title says, you get to ask Ken anything. And we just had one of these yesterday. Great things where we got to talk about some of the challenges in coding with AI. We got to talk about different things related to Power Query, DAX, and Power BI, all kinds of fun stuff there. If you're looking for just the ability to interface with an expert and share with a great hive mind of incredible people, this is a fantastic product to check out. I highly recommend you do so. If you are looking at upskilling your Excel game, or you've got someone on your team who you feel needs a little bit more fundamental training, things like understanding how Excel works, how Power Query works, pivot tables, data visualization, we've got this great Excel Fundamentals Academy course, 30 hours of training and instruction. It actually includes access to our Ask Ken Anything sessions as well. It's a great product to take someone from a beginner to a solid intermediate level of Excel. So you can check that out at the link below. This product is also included with our more advanced course, which is the Self-Service BI Academy. This is our premier training product that actually goes and steps into from the basics of pivot tables into working with Power Query, dimensional modeling, Power Pivot, DAX, and Power BI. Comes with access to my software, my books, the previous course that I just mentioned, Ask Ken Anything sessions, and a whole bunch of other stuff too. Got some people that are here and part of that. You can always ask them what they think of the product as well. But I highly recommend it. It's a great product, and hopefully we'll see some of you there that you haven't seen before. This meetup, along with all meetups, is recorded and hosted on the Skillwave YouTube channel. If you are signed up to the YouTube channel, you will get notified of that right away. If you're not, we do post and let people know on the Meetup site when it is ready as well, so you can always go back and rewatch it at your pleasure. Second to last thing I'm going to say is if you would like to come and speak at VanPug, we are always looking for new speakers. We're definitely looking for people in the Power BI and Power Platform space right now. If you're interested, please fill out the little speaker survey form here. We'll get in touch, and we'd love to get you on our show to talk about the cool things that you are doing with these technologies. And on that note, I'm going to turn it over to my friend, young Karel, who's going to talk about vibe coding and Office JS add-in. So, young Karel, the floor is yours, my friend. I'm looking forward to this.
Thank you, Ken. Is my screen on screen now?
Your screen is on screen. You're good to go.
Hey. So welcome and good morning, everyone. Thank you, Ken and team, for inviting me over. And, let me talk a bit about Office JS, which is kind of not necessarily Power BI at all, but it has a big chunk of Excel stuff in there. So don't worry if you think it's too technical. It's just, showcasing what we can do nowadays. So my name is Karel Pieterse, which Ken bravely tried to pronounce. And I'm a self-employed Excel consultant from the Netherlands, and I've been in that business for over 20 years, 23 years actually. And here are my contact details. And by the way, I'm sharing this deck with Ken later on, so it will probably be available for download as well. Ken, you have my permission to post it online as well?
Yeah, we will do so.
Great. So yeah, let's get to the subject at hand. You guys may have heard of the term vibe coding, and I'm taking this opportunity to try and give that some hand and feet. I wanted to see how far these newfangled AI services could take me in developing a brand new Office.js add-in. So Office.js add-in, that is an Excel add-in that is written in TypeScript or JavaScript. It is a programming environment where you have a task pane completely developed like it's a web page. So it's HTML plus CSS. And then TypeScript or JavaScript is doing the heavy lifting and communicating with the Excel workbook that you're looking at. Having developed 3 add-ins from scratch manually, so to speak, I thought now it's time to see how much of that work I can fork out to my friend Copilot, which I'm not really on that good terms with. Ken knows my sentiments and I know Ken's. But anyway, so I want to see how far the AI service could take me. And in this presentation, I'll take you through the steps of gathering ideas because, I'm not that good at coming up with new ideas. So I was abusing Copilot to do that for me. Then deciding which add-in to pick. Then I'll talk about getting Visual Studio Code, which is a programming environment to create that add-in. And then make use of Copilot, GitHub Copilot, to make the necessary changes and optimizations of the add-in code. And at the end, I'll share what went well and what wasn't that good. So let's do some definition here. What's vibe coding? Wikipedia defines it like this. The key is who does the detailed work. In vibe coding, the developer moves away from writing lines of code and instead the developer evaluates outcomes. So does this thing do what I want? Whereas the AI is responsible for handling things like the structure, the syntax, the implementation, while the human is just guiding the AI using prompts, testing, and feedback. And what really distinguishes vibe coding from traditional AI assisted coding is that with vibe coding, it's the AI actually writing almost all of the code, as opposed to if you're using AI to assist you with the coding process, it starts suggesting you lines of code, kind of an autocomplete on steroids. But it's still the developer writing the actual code. So what is the origin of vibe coding? There was a guy named Karpathy, and his original point was not that AI helps you to code, that already existed, but that models became good enough to tempt developers to stop thinking about code entirely. So this makes experimentation really fast and accessible, even for non-programmers. At the same time, critics use the term deliberately to highlight risks, because when AI generates all of the code, you kind of give the responsibility to the AI to remember what's in the project. So yeah, there's no strong review. There are hidden defects, vulnerabilities, stuff like that can accumulate quickly. But this was an attempt to write a relatively small add-in with not that many lines of code, so I thought I could get away with it. So like I said, I want to find out how powerful this whole AI thing is, and at the same time end the project with a tangible result, a working Excel add-in that's actually useful. So my prompt to Copilot: considering all modern Excel add-ins currently available in the library, considering what the most recent Office.js API is capable of, considering what's possible, what isn't possible in Web Excel today, what add-in would you suggest I build to complement this? Suggest 3 or 4 add-ins. And so I'll break this up in smaller pieces. So considering all modern Excel add-ins currently available in the library, Microsoft has a store with Office.js add-ins, which you can access by simply going to Excel and clicking on the add-ins button that's on the Home tab. And there's a gazillion of add-ins in there, useful and probably less useful add-ins. And I was too lazy to start it, want to go in and look through all of them, see what they do. The second line, considering what the most recent Office.js API is capable of. This is a really important sentence there, because there's a plethora of information about automating Excel using VBA and .NET. What's not out there is a lot of information about how to write TypeScript to automate Excel. And the Office.js API is a lot less complete than the COM add-in API or the VBA API. So that's a really important restriction to make. And then finally, I wanted to see what's not possible in Web Excel today. So that was an important factor as well. By the way, Ken, I need to update my account. I have 4 add-ins in the store, not 3. Okay. So yeah, there's that. So that was my prompt. And that gave a bunch of add-in suggestions. And I just listed 3 of them here. A control to cell add-in. So that was kind of the idea of Copilot to somehow replace the forms controls that you can, drag from the developer tab onto your sheet to, add things like drop-down lists and list objects and buttons and stuff like that. It sounded nice, but, offering an alternative to form controls for Web Excel sounded a bit too experimental for me. And probably, I wasn't really impressed. The second one, macro modernizer, converting VBA to OfficeScript, that sounded really good to me, but there's a big issue. Office.js cannot read VBA code. It has no access to the VBA project at all. So here you see an example of the AI ignoring my sentence that it needs to be accessible through the Office.js API. It simply ignored that. And then finally, the one that I like most is Rule Manager, which was supposed to be a tool that helps fixing issues regarding things like broken up conditional formatting rules. And, who hasn't had a sheet with hundreds of broken up conditional formatting rules, all identical, but all with, bits and pieces of the column, all of a complete column with conditional formatting, but split up into 100 different elements. So that was the one I picked. Okay. So why? Now, well, the user problem is this. Conditional formatting rules are brittle. They tend to break up into non-contiguous blocks all the time. They are hard to manage, and it's not easy to fix the issues because, you have to go out and find the duplicates, fix the ranges, stuff like that. And it's really difficult to see what the actual difference between the different conditional formatting rules are because they, in that rule manager dialog, they all look the same. Data validation rules have other issues. For example, probably 90% of people never enter anything on the error alert tab of the conditional of the data validation tab. So you get this generic error alert that, it only says you made an error rather than explicitly telling the user what is supposed to be entered into the cell that you're currently entering in. Another issue with data validation rules is that, for example, people forget to unlock the cell that the data validation rule is applied to, and then they protect the worksheet. And you have an input cell, which is clearly an input cell because you put a data validation rule in there, but you forgot to unlock the cell. And those are examples of things that the add-in potentially solves, and real problems that Excel hasn't been able to solve in a practical way up to today. So I asked Copilot to generate the project files for me. And that means the entire the entire combination of files, HTML, CSS, TS, all of the files needed to start the project. So this is Microsoft 365 Copilot, the one that you can launch from your from your Windows Start button, and it'll just open up. So Copilot ended up, and it's probably not that easy to see, but at the top you see here a download link. And that was a zip file containing all of the files that Copilot had generated for me. Inside the file were placeholders for stuff that we hadn't completely finalized regarding the specification yet. So in some elements of the UI, it said placeholder this, placeholder that. But I did that on purpose because I knew that when I started iterating with the AI in developing the application, I would be making changes all over the place. So there was little point in, ensuring that the thing was completely ready before actually trying to pull it into Visual Studio Code. So it explains here what's in the project. You probably don't see my mouse, right? So it explains here what there's in the project, and then here there are the steps that I needed to take to actually get it up and running in Visual Studio Code. At least that was the theory. So far, I had been working in standalone Microsoft 365 Copilot app, but I wanted to be able to, prompt the AI, let it do its work, test the outcome, and for that I needed an IDE, an integrated development environment. And since I have a GitHub Copilot license granted by Microsoft because I'm an MVP, which integrates into Visual Studio Code, that is what I used. So M365 Copilot generated the base project for me with the key parts, but now I had to get all of that into my actual Visual Studio Code project structure. So I started on my virtual machine. It's useful if I just share that just a sec. On my other machine right now launching Visual Studio Code. Bear with me for a second. Share different screen. Oh God, Microsoft changed the user interface of Teams again.
The only constant is change when it comes to Teams.
Oh, it's horrible. So this is, you can see my screen now.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So this is what Visual Studio Code looks like. And just to give you an idea, this is the HTML that's behind my rule manager. And then there's a whole bunch of TS files. TS stands for TypeScript that contain the coding behind it. TypeScript is actually kind of JavaScript, but a bit more strict regarding declaring variables and stuff like that. So the main issue I had, let me return to my PowerPoint here. Let me at least try to. I'll share my PowerPoint later. Again, stop sharing. That's my PowerPoint. There it is. Back to our PowerPoint. Gotta hate PowerPoint, don't you? There's PowerPoint. So I had this zipped up project folder, and the problem is that Office.js needs some hefty plumbing. It needs a thing called Node.js and a thing called Geoman and loads of stuff more. Long story short, that is all the plumbing it needs to actually load a internet web server on your machine to do testing. And to give you an idea, a project folder containing an add-in like the one like Rule Manager can be as large as 500 megabytes. Whereas the project itself and all of the code is maybe, 10 MB. What else did I want to say? So I loaded everything into my virtual machine. I followed all the steps that Microsoft 365 Copilot gave me by the letter. And then I closed my eyes and pressed the F5 key, which is run. And nothing happened. You see, adding some files to a folder far from means that you can run the project. It needs that scaffolding I already mentioned. It also needs a lot of helper files inside VS Code, a thing called, what's it called again? Sorry, it's been a while. A manifest, of course, and it needs a package.json, and it needs a launch.json and a task.json. It's horrendous. And long story short, it took me a day and a half to get Copilot to fix the things for me because I had no idea which files to touch to get it up and running. Finally, for the next add-in that I did, I discovered that if you go to the website of Microsoft, to the documentation that belongs to programming in Office.js, it has just like 3 simple steps that tells you how to start a project. And if you first take those 3 steps and then start asking Copilot to help you create a new add-in, you're good. So remember that.
Mm-hmm.
So once I got that project ready to run and responding to F5 and actually opening Excel with my rule manager draft in there, I was, ready to get started. So how does that work? It sounds simple, right? You prompt the AI and tell it, okay, I want this button there and there, and I want that button to do this and that. And then Copilot goes at its work. It asks you for confirmation if it's, allowed to change files. And you can set that for a session or for the entire project or whatever. And then what? Well, then you get something that looks like this. So this is just an example where I ask Copilot to make a trivial change. So you see in the red box on the right, my prompt. And below here, you see that it changed one file. And I open up the file to see what the changes were, and it actually shows you the diff between what used to be there in red and what's now there in green. And for every change that it made, you get to keep or undo individually, if you so prefer. But if you're brave, you can just click the keep button here, and it will accept all of the changes in all of the files in the entire project. Which, by the way, also has a shortcut key. You can just hit Control-Enter, and it's going to go ahead and accept everything. So that's kind of neat because, well, it makes your life as a programmer easier because it's easy to follow what changes the system is making. And, if you take it small steps at a time, it's also a great learning experience because you get to see what precisely Copilot adds or removes. And what the syntax looks like and stuff like that. And since I'm an HTML, CSS no-op, making changes to how the UI looks and feels, that is really, really useful to ask Copilot to do because it knows everything about web programming. It's just not that smart about Excel, which is kind of an issue when you're, creating an Excel add-in. But, that's where I come in.
Hey, and Karel, we got a
Yeah.
question in the chat. Do you think Claude would handle this better than Copilot as far as the coding?
Well, actually, if you're working with Copilot, let me share my other screen. You can choose which model and service to use. So this tiny little pane is everything that you use to control the agent. And you can set it to, plan or ask. And I always forget to set it to that because if it's in agent mode, it interprets any question as something you want to have done on the project. Whereas if you just want to ask it a question, it's a good idea to, set it to ask because then it knows you're just asking a question. And, if you're not sure yet what you want to do, set it to plan and then start asking questions and, use it as a kind of a discussion partner. So those are the different modes that you can set it to. But to your question, Ken, you can select Claude here.
Nice.
I'm not sure if that's actually readable on the screen, but
yeah, good enough. Yep.
Yeah. The only issue is that if you select that and you're on a paid plan or actually pay for the plan, unlike me, the auto mode is cheaper because that kind of gives you a discount. And it is said that it then chooses the most efficient model for the task at hand. I've kept it on auto. Haven't had much issues so far. So yeah, there's that. Back to my
I'm just going
PowerPoint.
to say that's kind of amusing because I mean, I just tried something this morning using the edit and Copilot experience, and it's got, of course, it's auto, and you have the ability now to choose in there between GPT or a couple of different Claude models, and the
Yep.
auto output was horrendous. And if you choose one of the Claude models specifically, it was almost workable, and actually neither one worked, but one of them almost did. So
Yeah, your mileage may vary, but what's interesting about Edit with Copilot, when it was just brand new, so when we got our early bits from the MVP program, and it was named differently because they relabeled this like 100 times in the meantime, you could actually ask the agent what Office.js code it used to generate what's on the Excel file.
interesting.
Get my drift. So you ask it to create something in Excel, and then you can ask it, okay, what types of code did you use to generate this? And it would happily just give you that. And so that's the other thing you need to realize if you're working with Edit with Copilot, it's restricted to what the Office.js API can do, because that is what it's using under the hood. Back to my PowerPoint. I know PowerPoint is boring, and this is an Excel presentation, but I have my notes up there. Let's see where I am. So yeah, so that's the editing experience, or the experience where you see what Copilot, what the agent has been up to in your project. Why is it not advancing my slide? Because I'm an idiot, probably. Okay, so blueprint upload pitfall. I had AI generate these slides, and I'm just talking from the top of my head and making it up as I go. And the slides are just there because I have my notes behind them, which I completely wrote myself. But I let Copilot do the slides. Whatever. I wanted to tell Copilot what I wanted the add-in to look like. A header and a footer in Excel colors. Let me show that it's here. So this is my Flex Find add-in, and I wanted that, where did it go? That top green header that you see here and the bottom green footer with a link and a link to my website. So what I did was I uploaded that screenshot into my Copilot in the other project. And that was a mistake. Boy, that was a mistake. Because Copilot then it started to implement find and replace functionality into my rule manager project. Even though I told it to just look at the design of that screen and, use it as a blueprint, take the colors and implement those colors into the task pane of my rule manager add-in, which has a completely different focus than my FlexFind add-in has. Still, it read this screenshot and then started implementing find and replace and complaining that, the API is not complete for finding and replacing in all of the objects, blah, blah, blah. It took me like half an hour to, get it to forget that it actually ever had that screenshot. So that was kind of a learning experience. If you give it something, make sure you're not giving it anything that is unrelated to the project that you're at, because then it's going to make up all kinds of stuff that you're not interested in. And this is experience from January. It may have changed in the meantime, or December, I think. It's 3 months ago, but it's probably a lot less problematic now because they keep shifting everything. Another issue I had was that I had Visual Studio Code crash on me. And it turns out I lost the past 2 days of chat history. Chat history in Visual Studio Code is kept in a couple of database files in some hidden folder on your system. with the GUID code somewhere. I don't know. It's really complicated. So I managed to get some of it back, but I lost a great chunk of history, especially my train of thought of the past day or three. So I thought, okay, let's solve this. I mean, given that Copilot can write code, it can also write instructions into a text document, right? So I tried to instruct Copilot to save a summary of every prompt and its responses in a dedicated text file inside the project. It kind of did it, but even though I repeatedly told it to append everything at the bottom of the file, it simply ignored me and tried to insert the prompts and their responses in what it thought would be a sensible place. Like, you asked me something about UI. Let me add this prompt in a section in the document that also talks about the UI. It's really hard to tell it not to think. Well, anyway, the takeaway I had was be careful because you might lose your chat history. And it's also really hard to get Copilot to actually store the chat history in a text file. So I'm now just, regularly closing and reopening Visual Studio Code because that is the point where it actually persists everything. And it hasn't happened again. Maybe Microsoft fixed an issue with Visual Studio Code. I don't know. Fingers crossed. So
Hey,
yeah, enough.
Young Carl,
Yeah.
can I ask you a quick question on this? Have you hooked up your project to Git, and are you actually doing commits to actually load it up into the GitHub repo? Because that should stop that process, providing you're making your check-ins frequently enough.
Yeah, well, I'm an Excel developer kind of guy.
So you're looking for autosave?
So I'm kind of not looking for autosave. It takes me ages to get used to that stuff because, I have 4 add-ins in the store now. So I need to be careful with changes I make to them. And 9 times out of 10, I forget to up the version number, create a new branch, do sync or whatever it's called, and then start programming.
Fair enough.
But yeah, I've also asked Copilot to come up with a proper git.ignore document so that is not uploading all of the mumbo jumbo that is not needed for the project. And so yeah, it does a pretty good job at that. I'm not sure whether you can actually also synchronize the Copilot chat history with GitHub. It should be possible. I don't know, but it's probably rather big files that you have to share then.
Yeah, the chat history you wouldn't be able to, but at least the code commits would. And I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, it's not really the chat history that's the critical payload to the project. It's actually the code files that are the part that you don't want to lose, right?
Exactly, but the code files are safe because I have GitHub set up for that. So that's all fine and dandy. But because I'm not writing the code, chat history becomes way more important than notes that you would otherwise have. Because otherwise, if you have notes that you've written for yourself and you lose them, you always have the project, and you have your memory, your train of thought, and you've written the code, so you know mostly what's in there. Except maybe for projects that have been around for 20 years, like my name manager add-in in VBA, stuff like that.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. I'm curious. Can you ask Copilot to actually aggressively comment your code? Would that solve some of that, or you still want more? You want that chat history?
You can ask Copilot anything.
Will it listen?
Yeah, well, it does some code commenting, so that's not too bad.
But I get your point. You still want that history.
Exactly. So is this Excel window good enough for you guys? Not too highly resolution and stuff?
I think it's probably good, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So enough talk about coding and AI and mumbo jumbo like that. Let's jump into the actual add-in. So it lives on the review tab, but if you haven't got it, you go to the home tab, you click on add-ins, and you just type JKP, which are my initials. You would think that would give my add-ins, but somehow they changed the search result, the search algorithm again. Because, last time I tried typing JKP enter, it would give me just my add-ins. Okay, just type the name of the add-in, which is Rule Manager. And funny enough, it appears here because I already have it installed. Funny enough, it's not listed here as a top item, even though that is the best hit. If you look at all of these, actually mine is not even there. Ken, remember to send feedback. This is horrible.
I know this exact issue happened with Jakob Nielsen when he was demoing his. So, I mean, I'm pretty sure that feedback has probably already been sent. But yeah, his thing was just go straight into the full on store here. The summary version on the first page is completely useless, which is kind of sad.
And this as well. I mean, this is like 100% hit on my rule manager, and it appears somewhere in halfway the list.
Brutal.
So you just click add here, and it gets added to your Excel. And then on the review tab, there's this new button called Rule Manager, and it opens up with a little help pane to explain what it does. And probably better to just show it rather than reading stuff to you. So I'll click the try it button, which is going to insert a worksheet into your workbook with all sorts of random conditional formatting and data validation rules. It takes a second or two. There it is. I ask it to draw boxes around all of the ranges that actually contain anything. Of course, the pro Excel devs know that you can hit F5 special and then, click data validation, and it'll select all the data validation cells, right? Okay. So what's it for and what does it do? Let's start with data validation. I click the button, and as soon as I click this button, it's going to analyze the active worksheet. So it's scanning the rules, and it gives you a list of all of the rules that it found, and it automatically selects the first rule. And if it detected something wrong with that rule, it puts this little fix label next to it. So there's a fix suggestion here, and the fixes that it finds are listed here. And as I already told you, it detected that the cells, or at least part of the cells, are locked. So it's going to suggest you to unlock the cells. And then moreover, it detected that these conditional formatting cells have a hole in the middle. So it also suggests to fix that by, creating a rectangular range. And here's another one. This is one where it detects that there is no error message. So it actually suggests an error message. It also sees that the cells are locked and that there's a hole in there. Let's see, what other stuff do I have? This is a data validation cell, which if you look at it, so let me just select it and open a data validation dialog. It's set up as a list, but it refers to a named range called empty list. And actually that empty list are these three cells, and they are empty. So it detects that the source of the list in the data validation is empty, and it warns you that that is the case. Of course, it can't automatically fix that because the system doesn't know what list you intended to show in your data validation. But there's this hyperlink here that you can click, and it will pinpoint at the cell range, and you can go ahead and fill in that range. Anything else? Oh yeah, this one is a nice one too. Suppose you have this financial model and you have input cells in a row, but your data validation is only set up for these four cells. So it detects that there's adjacent data that probably needs data validation as well, and suggests that you expand it to this. And you get to choose whether you want to exclude or include headers. But of course, it's hardly ever sensible to include the headers, so the default is exclude. So yeah, those are the kinds of issues that you can do with data validation. And then conditional formatting is a little bit of a different beast. So let's scan for my conditional formatting rules on this page. And the first one it detects is this range, and it says that, okay, this range has one duplicate conditional formatting rule, and if you click apply, it will get rid of it. Another feature here is that, I have a range, I have the entire column selected, and I call that an overbroad range. And it suggests to, intersect the range, the column C, with the use range of the sheet. It probably doesn't make much of a difference, but, it's there anyway. And finally, it detected that this conditional formatting rule, if you go into conditional formatting, it doesn't have any formatting set up. So Rule Manager detects that and then offers to just get rid of the rule entirely because it has no effect whatsoever. Interesting thing is, if you check this box, it will automatically uncheck the other one because they are mutually exclusive. Other stuff is with, the shape of the conditional formatting rule. I kind of have the experience that Excel models are usually either row-wise or column-wise or rectangular. And so these haphazard cells here don't make any sense to me. So you can select here what you want this fix to look like. You can set it to, cover the rectangle, columns only, or rows only. What else do we have? Oh yeah, this is an interesting one. So this is a conditional formatting rule. Go back into format conditions where things. And the rule is cell value between D19 and D18. Now, if you look at this sheet, D18 and 19, actually the values are reversed because we're looking now for a value between 5 and 1, which is kind of illogical. So Rule Manager then offers to swap those two. It also detects, by the way, that particular rule has no formatting. So probably the wisest choice here is to just check it to delete it. And I think this is more or less everything I wanted to say. It's also capable of detecting conditional formatting rules which have a duplicate condition, but have different formatting. And then finally, for the demo, if you're brave enough, you can click the auto button, and it gives you the opportunity to, select all of the automatic fixes that it offers here. Let me just do that. And then it will apply all of these rules to all of the formattings, conditional formatting rules and data validation rules. And I'll just click Run Auto Clean, and it's going to go ahead. It will show you some progress, and it'll give you a list of things, modifications that it did. This is a good example where you see that Office.js is not particularly fast. If you were to program this in VBA, it will probably run 2 or 3 times as fast as this. But the big benefit, of course, is that this also runs in Excel online. So it made all the fixes, and then it listed all of them here. And you click a report button, it gives you a nice list of everything that it changed. And then last but not least, in contrary to VBA and COM, any changes that you make, that Office.js makes to your Excel model, can be undone. The only issue is that every change is named action. And if I go all the way to the bottom, it should go as far as remove the Rule Manager training sheet. Bam. So we're at the pristine, empty Excel workbook we started with. Okay. Now let's do something brave and try and start to get PowerPoint up and running at the same slide that I started, which is always a challenge for me. Bear with me. Share. There we are. So that was my demo. What would I do again? So what is repeatable? What helps? the lessons I learned. So first of all, and that's probably an open door. Most of these probably are. You need to clearly tell Copilot what you want it to do and what you want it not to do. While it's doing its work in Visual Studio Code, it shows you a list of actions while it's reasoning. Stuff like, okay, you asked me to add a button. I'll color that button orange. Blah, de, blah, de, blah, de, blah. It's a really good idea to pay attention to what it's saying, because that gives you the opportunity to stop it in its tracks, because sometimes it goes off track and starts to do stuff you totally don't want it to. While I was creating this presentation, by the way, something changed to the way GitHub Copilot works, because up until this presentation, while Copilot was reasoning, you could not enter any prompt and give it to Copilot. You had to stop Copilot reasoning and then enter the prompt and press enter to give it new instructions. At the moment, this has changed. So mid-process, you can just type a prompt, hit enter, and it treats that as a steering prompt. So you can actually steer it in the right direction midway. Sorry. So how do you do it well? Don't ask it to build a full app in one large set of prompts. Instead, give it a concise document which outlines most of the specifications that you have at the start. And don't forget to include stuff that you don't want it to do. Then let Copilot generate a basic version of your add-in. So don't give it too many features at the beginning. Even though you want your add-in to have 20 features, let it create 2 or 3. And then start iterating. Prompt it to add something. Check what it's added. Correct it. On to the next. By the way, I had to step in multiple times to give Copilot a URL of the Office.js API documentation to explain to it that, you think that is not available in the API, but it is. Here's the URL. Here's how to use it. I also had to fire up, what's it called again? ScriptLab, which is that thing in Excel where you can, create a tiny little Office.js project. And it has some examples in there too. ScriptLab is highly recommended if you ever want to start creating Office.js add-in. I had to give it ScriptLab examples to demonstrate how to do stuff. So yeah. Conclusion. Always interesting. So vibe coding works when you treat it like you're engineering a project. And my prior Office.js add-in experience greatly reduced the time I needed to get started. And the time I needed AI, to get AI to actually create something that worked. But, discipline is really important. A clear plan is crucial. Otherwise, it'll get you nowhere. And, that brings me to questions. And if not, my next slide contains my contact information. You're always welcome to send me questions via email or contact me on LinkedIn or whatever.
Okay, so if anybody's got questions, please drop them in the chat, or raise your hand, and we can get you onto the thing as well.
Yes,
yeah, Karel,
please.
I'm going to seed this with a question right off the bat, because in my Ask Him Anything session that I was hosting for my students yesterday, we actually had a conversation around, and actually Deepak is here. He was the one that asked this question: is if I need to invest my time right now in learning VBA versus learning Office scripts or Office.js, which would be the appropriate thing to go and spend my time on? So we had a long discussion around this yesterday, but I'm curious as to your thoughts on this, to what you would say. Like if you were guiding someone who has had some experience in programming in the past, I won't tell you what language, although I think that's relevant. But what's your thoughts? Where would you go with this stuff right now?
Well, as with anything, it depends.
Attaboy.
No, I mean, Office.js is only fit for creating add-ins. So if you have an Excel workbook, like a financial model, which needs a little bit of coding to automate some certain things inside the model. Like, I don't know, a button to click to create a PDF of page of, sheet 25, whatever, stuff like that. All of the things that you write VBA code for, right? Or record a macro. Then Office.js is not your thing. Because Office.js is not particularly a document-centric programming paradigm. It is meant to create add-ins. And you publish them in the store, or what you can also do is send a manifest to the IT manager to have it installed in the tenant, for example.
Now you can write Office scripts to do some of that stuff.
Yeah.
But
Office script is great if you are in an environment where half of the people is using Excel online. You have all these workbooks in your SharePoint, and if you click it in SharePoint, it opens up in your browser. Then Office script is kind of useful because you can tie it to a button in that workbook, and it'll do stuff, and it will work in Excel online. It will also work on desktop Excel. So if half of your team is, used to you opening Excel desktop with that SharePoint file, your Office script button is also going to work.
Actually, and fun fact on this one, if you create an Office script button, as long as you've created your Office script button first, you can then also link a VBA macro to the same button.
Yep.
And then when you run it in desktop, it runs the VBA, and when you run it online, it runs the Office script, and you don't actually have to do any handling, which is kind of cool if you're working across those kind of things there. So,
yeah,
but yeah, that gets a little hardcore because then you got to know both.
Yeah, the interesting thing about Office script though is that you can also call it from Power Automate.
Yeah, well, there's a comment in the chat here from Casper saying, I find it's difficult to link and loop scripts. I have to use Power Automate to overcome it. There's no button for scripts in the workbook. And I mean, this is one of the sort of things that I mentioned as well that I find is what I love about VBA is that you've got your solution can all be wrapped up in the same workbook. It's super portable. You can send it away and all the stuff is there. Whereas in scripts, it's not connected to the workbook. So you can forget to send the script with it. And then
that's
sometimes
not,
also
actually that's not true entirely.
Have they fixed that?
No, but Office script doesn't leave your tenant, period.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. So if you, like you and me, develop solutions for your customers, you have to find a way to get that script to the customer. And the way I do it is, once I have a project like that, I ask my customer, give me a username at your tenant, and I'll develop everything in your tenant. Then you can go ahead and publish that script on SharePoint so that the sharing is easier, because then you get to change the owner of the script to someone from the team.
Gotcha.
And Casper said something about there's no buttons for scripts in the workbook, but that's not entirely true, because you can, just like you can add a form button to your worksheet, you can add a script button to your worksheet as well.
Yeah, I think Casper clarified with that meaning Power Automate buttons is what Casper meant, actually. No button
okay,
to link a Power Automate. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So,
yeah, gotcha.
Other questions? Anybody else with a question that they want to throw out? I think I'd say it was an interesting point actually there, Jan Karl, that I don't think that we did cover actually yesterday on the Office scripts being bound inside the tenant, making it very difficult for third-party developers to actually build and share with others. Because I know certainly from Deepak's perspective, that is exactly what you're doing. You are working as a third-party consultant, so that's definitely a factor to consider as well. So, having said that, I've found, I can say it's probably, to me, a 50-50 mix on whether or not IT decides to block Office scripts and make it very difficult to get, the JS add-ins installed versus whether they block VBA. So, sometimes you see both, sometimes you see one or the other, but it's hard to predict. So
yeah, there's definitely that. I have like 4 or 5 customers that have the add-in library completely blocked.
Yeah.
Whereas there's quite a lot of useful stuff out there. The same goes for VBA add-ins like my ref analyzer, which is mentioned in the chat. Thank you. Stuff like that is blocked pretty often as well.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, I run into it with column add-ins as well, right? I mean, but that's IT. IT will block because that's what IT is trying to make sure that everything is safe. And just because we're good people doesn't mean that everybody is. So, that's the challenge you run into there. So, I mean, I get it. It's just frustrating as a developer and as a user.
You got to give them some credit, right?
Yeah, well, you used to do the role. I get it. Just doesn't make me any happier when you run into it. So,
it's kind of a bit more than just resetting passwords, right?
Well, exactly. Deepak's asking, what's the testing process like when you create a real manager? Did you use AI to do the tests?
I do testing from the seat of my pants. So that means hitting F5 and just trying stuff. I didn't go as far as actually instructing the agent to include testing facilities into the code. That's, clearly a giveaway that I'm not a pro dev whatsoever. I come from the user side of things. So I've been using spreadsheets since like 1986 or something like that, and kind of rolled into programming because I hated stuff that, hated things like doing things more than twice. And then I started writing macros for Lotus 1, 2, 3, and then I started keystroke macros for Quattro Pro, and then somewhere in 96, we acquired the license for Microsoft Office, and then I discovered VBA, and the rest is history.
Was timely because didn't it come in 95?
Yeah, approximately. Yeah.
So, there you go.
So yeah, but the AI does do some kind of testing under the hood. It actually checks after each edit. It goes ahead and does a compile and checks whether there are issues in the code and fixes them before it releases or tells you that it's done. So it's not bad at all.
General question: is there a future for Power BI to have any add-in programming automation coding to speed up things? That's a good question, Zach. So you do have the ability to create add-ins to work with Power BI. You can actually see some of these. There are add-ins out there. Tabular Editor. You've got Dax Studio. I mean, these guys are both add-ins as well. So yes, there are add-ins for Power BI. How the interface works to program into them is kind of depends on what you're trying to do. It's easier with the new Tyndall scripting language and things like that. But does it have a full object model kind of thing like Excel does? It's different a little bit, but there is some programming capability there. Yes. So, sorry. So for the video, Casper just mentioned the comment about IT having their job to do and how they managed to lock their database in minutes with a query, and somehow IT gets on the phone right away. It's amazing how that happens. So well done. You probably made their day. Awesome. All right. Well, if there's no other questions, listen again, Karel, thanks for coming in and giving the presentation. I really appreciate it. It's always interesting to see it. I mean, I think today, in my opinion, you're probably one of the most prolific add-in developers on this platform. So, and I don't know anybody that's actually released more than one add-in in Office.js at all. So, hats off to you, man. It's amazing. And I know behind the scenes how much feedback you've been giving to Microsoft to try and plug holes and fill gaps and make this easier. And I'm pretty sure there's going to be an email going later today about some other things, but yeah, no, great stuff. Really appreciate it. And I always enjoy having you on the show. So,
you know what?
Thanks.
Probably this whole new Excel edit with Excel agent Copilot thing, what's Simma called, because it changes every day, is a blessing in disguise for the development environment, because it will force Microsoft to get that object model completeness that we desperately need.
Absolutely. I keep hoping that they'll, eventually look back at this and say, hey, while we're doing this and you're in the coding stuff anyway, can we just like plug a couple of small holes in the VBA side? But don't know if I should hold my breath on that.
You in a couple of huge holes.
Well, I'm just trying to get small first. If we can get small, maybe we can get into the bigger ones. But
yeah.
So anyway, we'll see what happens.
So Ken, given that we don't have any time left. What's the deadline here?
What you need? You have another demo you want to show?
I thought I spent a minute or two just showing what I'm up to with my workbook info add-in.
Yeah, go for it. Absolutely.
Okay.
Super top secret stuff coming here.
Yeah, right. Let's load a demo workbook. Whatever, doesn't matter. So ignore what's on the screen. Let me just pick I'll just add an empty sheet. So what I've been up to is an add-in called Workbook Info. And you access it from the Formulas tab, Workbook Info. And there's a bunch of new user-defined functions. And the first one, I'll just show you a quick one. This is JKP. They all start with JKP just to find them easily. And it's called Workbook. And all that Workbook does is it'll list out the meta information about the workbook. Right? Like the name, the author, saved by, last save time, number of worksheets, stuff like that. Number of range names. And there are loads of other functions here, like, a list of charts, stuff like that. And then because, I let AI do the work anyway, and I have no idea how all of this works, I also asked it if it could create Excel entity data types from these functions that you see here above. So there's a function called jkp.workbookinfo. And that looks like you just get the name of the file, but there's this little icon here. You click and it'll show you a card of everything that's in the workbook, like named items. And you can pick this and it will list all of the range names, right? And then you can go into the range names, type a formula. And this is a spelled array, so I can use the pound sign and then press the period and get the formula of the range name. Right? And we can do the same with like whether it's hidden or not visible, I think it was. Stuff like that. So that is what I'm currently working on. And there's, you see other functions here like slicer info, table info, and etc. But this is still very, very much still under construction. So it's really buggy at the moment. And I'm still discovering what other holes there are in the API. To name one example, you can get a list of all the slicers. This file doesn't have any slicers. Let me open the file with slicers. Oh, okay. Did I delete that file? Right, there it is. And so here it gives me a list of all the slicers. And what I wanted to add was, you see this function doesn't work, but what I wanted to add was a way to, be able to type the period and then ask it, okay, what table is this slicer connected to? Or is it connected to a pivot table or a regular table or whatever? And also I wanted to go the other way. So, you can connect a slicer to more than one table or more than one pivot table at least. But the API doesn't give you that information. So there's a lot to wish for in this thing. So yeah, that was my super short demo of something that's very much under construction.
There's some tricky challenges around trying to reverse engineer that stuff with VBA too, because slicers get connected to slicer caches, which have data sources, which have, it's complex, but hence the need, right? When you get that working, I'd love to see what is actually selected via the slicer. Would be nice too. Slicer selection.
That already works.
Is it multiple?
That already works.
That already works? How can you look at that? All right. So can you send me a copy? No, I'm just kidding. I'll let you fix the bugs first.
I'll send you a copy once it's done.
Yes, exactly. There you go.
You know what the challenge with these things is to actually stop asking it for new features.
Yeah. Yes.
because it's so dead easy to ask it to add something.
Yep.
That it's really easy to forget to actually test what it's been adding in the past hours. So yeah.
Yes. No, I might have some experience with adding too many features at once.
Yeah.
I think that's the
But
curse of being a
still that
developer.
I think an important message here is, yes, you can get away with vibe coding and that in, but you need to freaking know what you're doing.
Yeah.
If you're not, if you don't have the knowledge of the object model, of the programming environment, of Excel, then yeah, there's just a disaster waiting to happen.
No, I agree. And I mean, I think that's a general speak about AI in general. I don't think it's specific to vibe coding, but I think it surfaces there quite quickly, I would say, is my opinion. So yeah. Awesome. Well, there you go. Thanks for the top secret demo. Appreciate that. Awesome. And on that note, I think we'll end her off for today. So thanks everyone for coming. Thanks again, Jan Karl, for a great presentation.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we'll see you all next time. So till then.
Yep.